Hello, I'm Laura Bizzarri, and I'm here today to talk to you about flower mites that hitchhike on hummingbirds. Imagine a world in which to get food, find a partner, or have children, you have to get on an airplane and fly somewhere else. Now let's substitute human food for tropical hummingbird pollinated plants, substitute human couples for flower mites, and human families for a female mite with her offspring. Lastly, we can switch out our airplane for a hummingbird. The simplified diagram that I just showed you depicts the key players in a system of interactions where hummingbird pollinated plants are also hosts to mites that inhabit their inflorescences, compete with hummingbirds for the nectar of the flowers, and hitchhike on hummingbirds' beaks to disperse to new plants in search of food, mates, and reproductive grounds. I studied these interactions at La Selva Biological Station in Costa Rica, and while studying the system, one of the main questions I had was whether mite dispersal is limited by the hummingbirds they hitchhike on. A combination of field collections, traditional taxonomy, and DNA barcoding were used to identify mites and their interactions with host plants. And to identify hummingbird plant interactions, I used video recordings. We can actually use human transportation systems to understand how accessible different host plants are to mites. I'm from Italy, so let's say I want to go to Rome to get food, then fly to London to find a partner, and finally I want to move to Oslo to raise kids. We have a direct connection between Rome and London, and also between London and Oslo, but there's no direct connection between Rome and Oslo. This animation can be simplified into a diagram with green rectangles for the locations and straight and dashed arrows for direct and indirect access respectively. If we go back to our hummingbird flower mite system, we have this species of flower mite that is found on Heliconia mathiaceae and also has two additional host plant species. From Heliconia mathiaceae to reach Amelia patens, the mite will climb on the beak of this hummingbird and hitchhike its way to Amelia patens. Here, in Amelia patens, to reach the third host plant species, the mite will have to climb onto a different hummingbird species and hitchhike its way to Heliconia latispata. So we can see that there is a direct access between Mathiaceae and patens. There's a direct access between Amelia patens and Heliconia latispata. However, there is no direct access or no hummingbird species that visits both Heliconia mathiaceae and latispata. We can once again simplify the animation that I just walked you through into a diagram with each host plant species represented by a green rectangle and lines representing the axis among host plant species. Using a matrix calculations that account for hummingbird visits among host plants, we can calculate a percentage of direct access to host plants out of all of the host plant species a mite uses. After creating the diagrams for all of the 18 species of mites that we find at La Selva Biological Station, we can see that only 3 out of 18 mite species have less than 100% direct access among their host plants. Going back to the main question of whether mites are dispersally limited by hummingbirds, the short and quick answer is no. Instead, mites likely choose their preferred host plants among the options that are offered to them when they're hitchhiking on hummingbirds. Lastly, I want to acknowledge my funding sources and thank my advisor, Dr. Carlos Garcia Robledo, and my field assistant, Mario Alberto Salazar Araya. Thank you.